Welcome back to CHIROTHON Mac. We're super excited because on our last segment, you saw some pretty amazing stories and you heard some heart-rendering moments. And we started a couple segments ago about giving to you because we know that you're giving to us. How do we know? Well, CHIROTHON Mac has already generated $10,976. So remember, those dollars are being matched by our founder and CEO of Foot Levelers, our founder of the Foundation for Chiropractic Progress, Mr. Kent Greenewalt. So we are almost there, folks. We got to keep you coming in. And I cannot believe we're at the end of Saturday with this very, very special guest. Now, before we get started, I want to offer you a gift. This guest for this vignette is Dr. Lisa Olszewski, and in her appearance today, she wants to give back to you. How is she going to do that? She is offering a 3-day Kick Sugar course. I think I'm going to need to take that course for free if you use the code CHIROTHON23. Also, you can go to drlisao.com/kicksugar. Again, use the code CHIROTHON23. Go to drlisao.com/kicksugar. And you'll also get 15% off at her Dr. Lisa O physician grade supplements. Again, you'll use that CHIROTHON23. So now I'm giving back to you. What are we doing here, ladies and gentlemen? We're raising $50,000 this weekend so that we can promote a first-line approach to those that are suffering during Drug-Free Pain Management Awareness Month in September. Patients need opportunities to have a variety of treatment methods, and chiropractic is one of them. We love chiropractic. We want to elevate, we want to celebrate, and we want to educate.
Yes.
And that's why we have Dr. O with us today. But before we get started, we have to give thanks to who sponsored our segment today. And our sponsor today is the Michigan Chiropractic Foundation. For nearly 30 years, the Michigan Chiropractic Foundation has accelerated the education, the scientific, and the charitable activities that make this state so special. The Michigan Foundation really does advocate, promote, and also increase awareness about the benefits of chiropractic care. So a very, very big thank you to the Michigan Foundation, because that is who's sponsoring Dr. Olszewski. So let's introduce our fabulous guest. She is a leading wellness chiropractor and naturopath, helps families around the world, both in her Michigan practice and virtually through personalized lifestyle coaching. Now remember, chiropractic is a lifestyle, and we practice what we preach, and she is a chiropractor doing exactly that. After nearly 20 years of working with patients, she realized something very, very important, and that's there is no single approach to anyone's health. It's in fact something that you need to individualize, and that's why she created her own proprietary method to unlocking personal energy code. Don't you love, it just rings,
Right.
The personal energy
Absolutely.
code. So we're very grateful to have you with us. I know that you're also a top ranking podcast. Her podcast, Healthy Living Simple with Dr. Lisa O, along with the host of the Keto Virtual Summit and the Healthy Vibrant Women's Summit. So welcome to CHIROTHON Mac.
Thank you so much for allowing me to be here. This is going to be great.
It is.
Yeah.
And as I read through your bio, I can tell the energy and the opportunities that you bring to the table. And one of them is this: you look at health very individual.
Right.
And there's clearly a difference between where men's health is and where women's health is.
Absolutely.
Discuss this concept with me.
I think this is like the reality to look at it. As women, our hormones are shifting 30 days out of the month. Like that is the basic, right? And the whole reason that I decided we needed to look at it this way was because I went down a whole rabbit hole probably almost 10 years ago. And I was doing everything, following all the influencers on Instagram and what everybody was telling us to do. And I followed it as the guys, and I lost my health. Right? Like I lost weight, but I lost my health. And so from there, I had to figure it out. Like I went back to my books because we know our stuff, right? And everything that I was doing at that time period, I'm like, this just doesn't seem right. And so that's how I ended up really cultivating it that way, because we have to look at it as women. Because we are, every single day of the month, our hormones are different versus the guys, and their testosterone is typically pretty the same, but we have a beautiful harmonious blend of hormones, and we need to make sure that we are supporting them and that we're not doing detrimental things for them, right? So that's really the basic, is when we look at it that way, we're not little men. Because when we look out in the world, so often as women, we are told, well, you're just a little guy, do everything the same way. No, we're not. We're totally different. We're complex human beings. We need to figure this all out differently.
It is. You said complex human beings, and I very much agree with you, because dealing with what happens on a hormonal scale for women and dealing with the hormones that men have, they really are chemically and physically, we're very different in that way. And that's why I think you came up with your personal energy code. It's the personal portion of that.
Yep, and looking at it for each of us, like figuring out what do we need to do. And so much of it comes down to diet, right? And that's where I always look with my patients. And I was just telling somebody this the other day, right? We can do everything right, but if your brain is not sending those right signals to the rest of your body, I said it to somebody, I'm like, here, you can take the digestive enzyme, you can take, whatever acid reflux med or whatever it is for your stomach, but if you're not getting the proper nerve flow, if there's a misalignment in the middle back or the subluxation in the middle back and we're not getting that proper nerve flow, we need to make sure that that's happening first and foremost. So everything I look at, 100%, making sure the brain is communicating with the rest of the body. And now let's build on, is it really a deficiency? Like, how often are people in our society thinking, oh, I have a headache, but not realizing it's not because their body is low on Tylenol, right?
Right.
There's something else going on, but we are trained in our society to look at things as a lack. Oh, we have high cholesterol, we must be low on statins. No, it's not. Let's teach somebody how to eat better, right? So many different aspects, but we do need to look at it as a personalized approach as to where we need to go to help build up our energy.
So I'm going to go back to a statement you made at the very beginning, because I thought it was really profound. And I think it's the society's way of really showcasing where we are right now is, you lost weight and you lost your health. So just because you're losing weight, that's not like the end all be all.
Oh my gosh, it's so true. And this was one of those things that took me forever to talk about it. And I remember on one of the first podcasts that they knew my story from behind the scenes and I never spoke about it publicly. So I will say it now, because it's like, ladies, I hear you. When this stuff happens, I felt judged. I felt unsexy. I felt everything because I was overweight. So what did I do? It was when intermittent fasting first became popular. There were a lot of people out there talking about it. So I did it, and I did it strictly, and I did it all the wrong ways and no ways that I would ever educate it. But I remember showing up at some of the big name seminars, and I won't ever say the names, but the guys that walked up to me and said, wow, you look so sexy now. But in the meanwhile, I'm sitting here thinking, I have lost all this weight, and what was really happening, I was losing chunks of hair. Like I had messed up my hormones so bad. And as a woman, to lose your hair, it was horrible. I wore my hair in a ponytail for a year. People here at MAC don't even know this at this point, because I've kept it quiet. But I talked about it on that podcast, and it was one of those things that I realized, like I said, I had to go back to my books, figuring out, okay, I did everything wrong. Like I just told my body, like, she's starving. Right?
Right.
So often all of this, one meal a day, like I see these ladies that are doing it, and this is going to be very, very polarizing, but I see a lot of people doing this and covering up for an eating disorder, right? And it's, you're not intermittent fasting 1 meal a day, because 1 meal a day, you're not going to get the calories that your body needs to produce the right hormones. So in essence, what happened with my body when I did that, literally going back to like our innate intelligence, my body said, holy smokes, Lisa, like you are not providing enough food for yourself. Like we can never allow you to get pregnant at this point. So we better tank your hormones so that doesn't happen, because you can never, if you think of it innately, your body would never be able to provide for this.
Sure.
So it took me a while to get everything back, right? However, everything is back, all the hair grew back, all of that stuff. But it was one of those things, like so much as women, like we focus on what we look like, and there's so much more. There is so much more to that, right?
So incredible and so complex, because as women, we have fluctuations in progesterone and estrogen, and women are listening right now, and they look in the mirror, and sometimes you don't see the body that you want, but the patience has to be there.
Yes.
And one piece of that patience is having the knowledge and the ability to have someone like you come in and say, let's take this one baby step at a time.
100%.
And sugar's obviously one of them.
It is.
Because you brought it up and you gifted them that. So
the
tell
kick
them
sugar
about
for
that.
sure, yes. And so it is, and I always say one baby step at a time, and I steal this from Tony Robbins, because it's one of those things as a society, like if you think of it, when our children are learning to walk, like they fall, they stumble. We never once look at our kids and say, hey kid, not gonna be a walker, just give up now, right? We do it all the time. We do it all the time with healthy living. You know, I tried that once. I tried that keto once. I tried low fat once. I tried whatever once, it didn't work. I tried chiropractic once. How about that? I tried chiropractic once. It didn't work for me. I look at my patients and I'm like, did you try dentistry once? Did you try medicine once and never go back? Like, time out. So we've got to have that endurance and to continue on and to pick up when we fall down, because healthy living is just one simple step built upon one another. You know, so if it's one of those things, like all you do is going to like walk to the end of the driveway today to pick up your mail, and then tomorrow you add on a few more steps, and the next day you add on a few more steps, where will you be a year from now, right? If that's all you're starting out with today. And it's small, simple steps, because we give up. I don't want people to, you know, you've seen it. Patients coming in saying, I'm going to start chiropractic, I'm going to become a vegan, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to run a triathlon next week. And I'm like, whoa, let's just slow down. Let's slow down. Let's look at one thing right now and then add on the next one, because I don't want them to give up. Oh, I tried that once, it didn't work.
It is keeping it simple. Like when you start complicating things, and all of a sudden, a lot of the diets out there, it's complicated. Like you're mixing, you know, how many calories, how many points, how much exercise. Did I do all of the steps? Did I not do all of the steps? Did I drink enough water? Did I not drink enough water? Did I eat too much protein? Did I eat too much carbohydrates?
Exactly.
Stop!
Right, so the biggest thing, it is sugar. It's getting rid of the inflammation. And I say this all the time on the podcast, the running joke in my practice, from about October 31st through February 14th, right? I go to adjust somebody and they're like, oh, that's really sore, that's achy. And I'm like, you know, like, with the amount of pressure we're using, that shouldn't be that tender, but there's that much inflammation in the body. So I always tell the patient at that point, I'm like, oh, got a lot of carbohydrates. Are you eating a lot more sugar lately, right? From Halloween to Valentine's Day, everybody is. And they always look at me like, holy smokes, how did you know that, doc? And I'm like, well, you know, carbohydrates, very inflammatory. Sugar is very inflammatory in the body. So therefore, we need to decrease our sugar, but the majority of us are addicted to sugar. Right? When you look at some of the studies that are done on rats with the areas of the brain on how they light up, like sugar is as addictive as cocaine. So it's one of those things, like we need to eliminate that out of the body. There's a whole host of other issues with it, but we need to realize that most of us are addicted to sugar, and we do need to kick sugar out of the diet, which is why I'm gifting the Kick Sugar 3-day kickstart, because it's something that's necessary. We need to understand what it's doing to us, which is what I deep dive into that kickstart on.
Because you don't really know how much the sugar's impacting you, just like until you actually get off of it. And, and it's really important for people to know that soda's not our friend.
No.
It's really important to recognize pulling away from it. It may not be easy, which is why I think going into your course and having some extra feedback and say why am I doing this, Lisa?
And creating an awareness to find out, like if you start reading your labels, it's in your mayonnaise, it's in your ketchup, it is in everything that you didn't realize it was there. And the average person is like shoveling in an extra 20 teaspoons of sugar a day in all of these miscellaneous products that they don't even realize that they're eating. Right? So that's what, like, it's creating the awareness and then realizing, like, okay, so how do I start cutting back on some of these things? Or finding non-sugar options, but I say that like tentatively because I options without, I don't want you to pull in, the sucralose and the NutraSweet and the artificial sweeteners. We want to stay away from that stuff too, because there's a whole nother thing on there. But I've dug into that one on the podcast.
When you go into it and you think, do you need a visual? And if you need a visual, 20 teaspoons of sugar. Like if you bake and I'm going to add sugar, and then you start thinking to yourself, I'm going to add an extra 20 in just to see what happens.
Right.
I mean, it would ruin the recipe.
Or like an average can of Coke, right? 10 teaspoons of sugar. 10 teaspoons of sugar. And you and I know, like that would create a diabetic coma in most people. And so thank God for our hormonal system with insulin and glucagon and everything that's able to balance that out. But if we're doing that over and over again, that's really going to wreck everything.
It is. It is. And the one thing that we don't take into account is the external factors on what's going on in our body.
Right.
And I know hydration is one of those keys. You get stressed out and you start to sweat like crazy.
Right.
And then you're wondering why you have a headache later. Well, your body just told you, hey, you sweated out all of our good electrolytes and here we are. Talk to me about hydration.
For sure. So the biggest thing is that we're looking at what our body weight is, right? And you want to divide that in two, and that's the amount of ounces of water that you need to bring in every single day. So then I have patients that sit there and say, well, does coffee count? No, coffee's so dehydrating. So I always tell people for every cup of coffee, I'm not telling you to stop your coffee, not at all, right? Like I love coffee. But for every cup of coffee that you have, I want you to drink 8 ounces of water as well.
Okay,
so
doubling down, 8 ounces of coffee, 8 ounces of water.
Right.
And that's not on the that's in
above and beyond,
okay.
Yes. And so absolutely, we need to make sure we're drinking enough water because the majority of our body is water, right? So it's also one of those things, especially I always tell our patients, we want to help to detoxify. If you're not getting in enough water, we're not going to be able to detoxify out everything that your body needs to be doing.
Oh, she said a key word here, detoxify. So imagine trying to move something that's supposed to be on a lubricated line, okay? So everything is moving in the right direction, but the line is no longer it's not lubricated. And that's really the importance of water because we don't have a hemorrhoid problem. We have a problem where people don't understand the quality of eating and the quality of sitting
100%.
long periods of time. Let's go there.
Oh, sitting for sure, right? I mean, we know with the text neck that's happening, and I focus on this so much in the practice, for every inch that our ear is going ahead of our shoulder, right? So everybody, when you're on your phone like this all day long, there's an extra 10 pounds of force in the lower part of the neck. So we show that to our patients on x-ray, right? Because obviously this 15-pound head for a heavy head, now if you're 3 inches forward, you've got an extra 45 pounds of force in that lower neck. That's creating the numbness and tingling in your hands. That's creating the headaches. That's creating all sorts of issues. These are the nerves that go to the thyroid. We want this all to be functioning properly. So yeah, sitting to our spine, kind of like sugar to our teeth. It rots it out.
It's rot.
It's rot. Spinal decay, arthritis, whatever it's rotting the spine.
So we know hydration is a big critical component.
Yes.
And you talked about lifestyle as posture and the impact of posture on what it does to the muscles and the nervous system. But let's talk about our mental health. Because we know nutrition has an impact on your mental health.
Yes.
Physical activity has an impact on your mental health. But from a chiropractic perspective, talk to me about mental health awareness and what it means to be properly taking care of yourself.
Oh my goodness, I just think when everything is functioning better, right? All hormones, everything will be functioning better. I know you've had it in your practice and I've had it in mine where people are like, I just think clearer, I'm happier, I feel, I even had somebody the other day that was, everybody understands the pulse ox now after the last 3 years. They check their oxygen levels every single day. And now that they're under chiropractic care, they're like, my oxygen levels are higher, right? Like how amazing is that? But it is, especially after the last 3 years, I think with mental health is something that we need to all, it's come to the forefront. We definitely need to be taking care of all of that. But so many things like omega-3 fats are what our brain is made up of, right? So nutrition-wise, we need to make sure that we're getting good quality fats. We're getting the good quality omega-3 fats, especially for brain health.
Look through an average teenager's life.
Yeah.
And adopt not only the social media variants, and as parents and grandparents that are out there, this is a really important impact to daily life for a teenager. Is they're getting the input from social media may or may not be true. They're getting the forward head tilt that you just talked about.
Right.
The Harris poll just came out and talked about the teenagers, 60% of them with neck pain.
Right. Oh my
The
goodness.
next Harris poll that came out is the highest use of chiropractic is our youth.
Good.
That's wonderful.
Yes.
It means our
Yes.
profession is finally getting through because your social media impacts what you think and do as a young person. It impacts how you feel, and it also impacts how you sleep.
Right.
Talk to me about that.
Okay, for sleep. First off, right, before bed, we do not want to be on our TVs, our appliances, all of our, our iPhones, the blue light, right? That is so stimulating to the brain. And so I always tell our patients we need to take that off, like turn those down, because you're going to sleep so much better, right? If we remove the TVs from our room too. So just to be able to calm down. And I think that's one of my things that I always want people to set themselves into some sort of routine. And especially, I grew up outside of Detroit. I've practiced outside of Detroit. I've always told our patients, I'm like, turn off the news. I do not want you watching the 11 o'clock news at night, because that is what is going into your brain all night long. And now your brain is focusing on those things. So this is when I always talk about the power of gratitude, right? Writing down 3 things that you are grateful for today, right? It could just be, hey, I went to work, and just simple things. I'm grateful for these flowers, and the beauty of finding 3 simple things that we're grateful for, and it sets us into a different mood before bed. And it's amazing as to the health aspects that happens to that overall. And I think that's something so important, especially with our youth, with everybody on social media all the time. They need to realize that a lot of times that's not the truth of what's happening. And so they realize, they think this is this whole world that's out there, and depending on how it impacts their health, and they've got to realize that it's 9 times out of 10, I would assume that it's probably fake of whatever they're watching, right?
That's a really interesting point, and I want to dive into it because you're doing a wonderful job of bringing out the quality of life. And chiropractic is that quality of life that really brings the light back into all the things that we do, whether you're a student or you're working at a very stressful job. As a parent, you can only tell your son or daughter so much,
right?
Because after that, it's in one ear, out the other. As a parent, you need backup, and especially in our youth, because you hit a really, really important point. Our youth get information that they can't process because they're not mature enough to process. Yet we don't know what they're trying to process.
Right.
So having a backup program like a chiropractor, where you take your son or daughter in and they can talk about, hey, I saw this thing on TikTok about starving myself so I can lose weight.
Right.
And then I also saw this thing about steroids and that I could use them to buff up. What do you think, doctor? Well, an average parent's not going to know. I don't know the difference between testosterone and a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory, or androgens, or other steroid use for muscle building. Teenagers want to look good. And in my day and age, we didn't have access to the world of information.
Goodness. Right.
Where do you want your son or daughter to get the information? A backup coach.
Right. 100%.
A backup coach like you. What would you say to the parents on why chiropractic is so important to a teenager?
Oh my gosh, it's so important just to have the second opinion, right? Because it's one of those things that I will see the kids, and I always laugh, like, what other doctor's office do the kids all run in and fight as to who's going to go first, right? Like, that's just what happens in chiropractic offices. But they become part of our family, and they are able to come in and ask those questions, right? And to be like, hey, I did see this on TikTok, I saw this, or, having the mom saying, hey, they saw this on TikTok, what's your feedback on this, Dr. Lisa? So it is to have a chiropractor in your back pocket, like that is, I think it's a beautiful aspect to have on your healthcare team.
It really is, because think about artificial intelligence. This may not be a thing.
Yeah.
Like, if you have little people right now, you're not thinking about artificial intelligence, but I'm going to tell you right now, you need to be, because if that child has a phone in their hand, artificial intelligence is going to gear them into a specific level of care. And they're gonna go to artificial intelligence. It is the omnipresent best way to move the needle forward. You are the answer, and you noted where else do you get
I
a
know,
bite for the first table?
Right,
I want my
still,
adjustment first.
exactly. I see it. I mean, for years, I've always laughed about it. Where they're like, "No, I'm first. I'm first. We're going to go by birth order." I'm like, "Okay, just somebody get up on the table."
Tell me about the experience you have, because clearly, you bring them in. They're toddlers, sometimes even infants.
Yes,
it
newborns.
almost makes me cry, because
I know.
I remember seeing my first patient. It hit me when she got married and I saw her as a baby, and it kind of hits you, and you kind of get that tearful moment of she's going to have a baby, and I treated her as a baby, and this is like the circle of love.
It is.
Right? Tell me about your experience.
I know. I think of some of the kids that I took care of my first year in practice that have now grown up. They've gone to college, they're married, they have kids, and their kids are now all coming in, right? But it's such an honor, especially when a parent comes to me and says, "Will you adjust my newborn? Will you?" There's been a lot of home births that I show up to afterwards and get the mom adjusted and the baby. But most of us misalign from our birth process. That's just what it is. And so if we can correct that early on, I tell people this all the time. I've been under chiropractic care since the day I was born. It wasn't because I had headaches as a newborn or low back pain as a newborn. My parents understood the importance of the brain and the spinal cord and making sure this connection was healthy. So what I do love is when I look at my x-rays as a 45-year-old, I look like I'm 20 on x-ray, which is beautiful in comparison to other 45-year-olds that I see that look like they should be 65 with the amount of arthritis in their spine, right? We know chiropractic works. And I think you'll love this, because I was probably my first year in practice, and I had this elderly woman show up, and she's like, "I've been under chiropractic care for years." Took her x-rays. She was 90. X-rays looked gorgeous, right? Like very little arthritis for a 90-year-old. And I looked at her and I was like, "Well, how long have you actually been under chiropractic care?" Assuming it was like 6 years, 10 years. She's like, "I think I started in about 1940. Like, she had been consistent with her chiropractic care for decades, and it showed. And at that point, I was like, chiropractic is absolutely amazing. So it is. It's one of those things. It's a health aspect thing, because then you think of all the sports that our kids are in now. When I was in school, we did not have all the sports options, and the kids are starting earlier. So there are a whole lot more falls and slips and accidents and injuries. And so we want to correct that stuff so that way it doesn't, because when they misalign, if the body doesn't think the area is stable, it's going to set down extra bone, right, which turns into arthritis. And so we want to correct that and make sure it doesn't happen, and we keep them healthy.
It's a very good point, because this segment was about quality of life.
Yep.
Really, it really is about quality of life.
Is.
From a male perspective, from a female perspective, from a child's perspective, or an aging adult, is that your quality of life starts when you pay attention.
Right.
It starts when you care enough to actually say, "I'm worthy," the self-confidence.
Yeah.
And children now get into more competitive sports at younger ages too.
Yes.
And you've seen some injuries from that over-processing.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. When you start to see the kids that are playing football earlier on, and then all of a sudden we're seeing the early stages of degeneration happening in the teenage years. We're also seeing the reversal of the cervical curve or the neck curve in these kids because of text messaging all the time. So yeah, we want to correct that stuff. And it's just like orthodontics, right? Like if you walk in with crooked teeth, you want to straighten them out. If your spine is in the reverse curve, we want to correct it.
So let's go back to where we started.
Okay.
Number one, we talked about sugar.
Right.
That might be a really good step for
Yes.
80% of the audience. If you love your ice cream, she's not saying give it up forever. What she's really saying is, let's be aware. Let's have that 3-day hiatus to say, what is it really doing,
right,
at the minimum? And that if in fact you lose weight and you feel worse, something doesn't seem right. If your hair's falling out,
right,
something's not right. And we need coaches, we need support, we need the love and care that someone is going to deliver. And you were generous enough to give that CHIROTHON 23 to your website. But share with me as we go through, because stress management is a big piece of this. And I know for women that have children, stress management, sometimes we try to juggle really quickly. I know the men do too. So men out there, I got you back. I'm going to have you back tomorrow. I got men's health, trust me. But I do want to focus on the hormones for women and stress management. Talk to me there.
All right, for stress management, well, first off, let me go back. We want to eliminate the sugar, but what I have found in looking at most women's diets, they are not getting enough protein. So they are eating a carb-laden diet, so they're having a lot of carbohydrates, but they're not getting enough adequate protein. And so I want you to look at basically the amount of lean muscle that a woman wants. We want that many grams of protein a day. And so most women, I'm telling you, at least 100 grams of protein. And I was at a seminar recently, and that's when it really hit me. I don't do gluten, so they were sending me gluten-free meals, but they gave me a bowl of lettuce for my lunch, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute.
Awesome.
Yes, it's gluten-free. However, this is not what I want. And then they brought me a huge gluten-free cake that was like this size. That was one piece, and I'm like, that's one. Like, so obviously, that's not healthy. Like, none of it was healthy. And so that's when I realized, I was like, wait a minute, ladies. Like, we are not getting enough protein. So we've got to make sure, whether it's beef or chicken or seafood, somehow we need to make sure we're getting adequate enough protein. So that's the first thing. And then start to decrease your carbohydrates. Plus, protein keeps you fuller longer. You are not going to have the blood sugar spikes and drops that carbohydrates do. Therefore, you are always hungry. We don't want that. So that's the first thing. Protein is also what's going to help make our hormones, right? We need to make sure that everything is really adequate, that we have good quality fats to help make hormones. We need all of the basics, right? So that's where we're at. Stress management, man, ladies, we are juggling it all. We're doing it all. And I know at the end of the day, it is so much easier. Like, you are pouring from this empty cup. So we've got to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves first, whether it is our own me time, making yourself a priority. It is not being selfish, because you cannot pour from an empty cup. If that is completely empty because you have been giving to everybody else all along, there's nothing good in that. So we need to make sure that we are 100% taking care of ourselves. Good stress management tools. I love Brain Tap. I love a lot of the different things that we talk about in here. But I always say, like, it's the power of the gratitude. Like, going back through first thing in the morning, what am I grateful for? Boom, boom, boom. What am I grateful for before night? Like, before I go to bed at night, set that as that intention.
I really do enjoy that you set it at night.
Yeah.
And then you start your day with that.
Yes.
Because when you think about trying to wind down and what your brain is really processing, the brain is a machine. Mm-hmm. And if we can recognize that this machine is amazing, it creates our thoughts, it runs a nervous system of billions of cells, and you get to decide what goes in it.
Right, 100%. You think of that like in the morning, if you wake up on like the wrong foot, right? It's just a bad day, and then boom, how everything just trickles along. Like, it turns into a horrible day because you said it was going to become a bad day, right? Versus like catching yourself like, okay, yeah, I spilled my coffee, let's flip it around. It's going to be an amazing day. And then making sure you follow through it.
I love that you say that, because earlier today I brought in Albert Einstein, who just tends to be that natural person that I just tend to, resonate with. You look at people in the past and you think, who would you love to spend time with? Albert Einstein. He said in his Physics and Math that the frequency that you put out, you can't help but get the same frequency back. It's physics. Yeah. So if you put in the negative energy at the beginning, how are you expecting to turn it around?
Exactly, 100%. So we need to focus on it. The mornings that I do, all of a sudden everything's all over the kitchen. I'm like, well, that was an amazing way to start the day. Let's try to figure this one out. But it is. It's one of those things, being conscious of those decisions throughout the day, that you have complete control over how you're going to react to it.
Conscious decisions on what you put in your mouth, conscious decisions on where you take your body for care.
Yes.
Because if it's breaking down, you might end up expecting to go to the ER because you left your machine unmaintained for a long period of time. Yeah. Hence, you blew the engine. Right. So don't expect that you're going to get health care at the ER.
Right.
And don't a lot of people, I have a problem, I'm going to go into the ER.
Yeah.
That's like the worst place you can go if this is not an emergency. Like, they're there to keep you alive.
100%.
Tell me what the chiropractor is there for.
Oh my gosh, we are here to help. I always use the analogy of a car, right? We are making sure we're keeping the body into alignment, keeping it that way. Because if your car is misaligned, you can drive that car misaligned. You are going to get a flat tire eventually. And it's the same thing with our bodies. We can live misaligned. We are going to end up with a flat tire. And it could be different aches and pains. It could be some sort of other health issue. But absolutely, with chiropractic care, we are keeping that body aligned. But it's also, I always, put us back to dentistry. Right? If somebody walks into the dentist for the first time in their life at 40 years old, there is a whole lot of work we got to do, right? They're scraping tartar, they're filling cavities, they're probably pulling teeth and doing root canals. So, however, if you start your kids with dentistry early on, it's a maintenance program that we do once every 6 months, probably for the rest of our lives, right? And it's the same thing with chiropractic. We start early on, you do your initial correction, but then people, I'm sure in majority of practices, is in mind, they feel so good, they want to make sure that they're always maintaining that and that they're always feeling good.
Yeah, so, you talked about sugar as crack. I'm going to tell
Right.
you personally, an adjustment, that's my thing,
Yeah.
right?
I know.
You get to that point where you're like, oh, I'm overloading
Yeah.
the circuits, and I just need body work
Right.
done. I
Right.
just need that
Yeah.
balance. And we go back to that one essential piece, which is maintenance care.
Yep.
Is being able to maintain the health that you have so that you don't end up in an
Right.
emergency.
Absolutely.
And that things aren't decaying on you in a very quick and unfortunate manner. And being honest, patients love chiropractic. And they say, I love my chiropractor.
Right.
When was the last time you said, I love my dentist?
Right?
Not that we don't love
I
dentists.
know. Or I love my medical doctor. Yeah, no, you don't hear
Doesn't
it.
happen.
You don't hear it. Like I said, like the kids running in, like where else does that happen? You don't see that at a pediatrician's office. Oh, I want to go first for my first shot. No, that doesn't happen, right? Like it does not happen. Please over here. No, that's not going on. But they do run into every chiropractic office saying, me first.
So it's been delightful to have you, and I want our audience to recognize that we're here to engage in understanding what chiropractic is, educating those who have never had chiropractic before, donating to us, CHIROTHON.org. So you're going to go to f4cp.org/MAC to our Chirothon 23. You have a wonderful guest here who will help you get rid of that 3-day sugar, 3 days. She's going to walk you through it. She's giving back to you. Will you give back to us? Because our donations really, truly matter, and we need you to walk with us so we can start promoting a healthy, happy, stress-free lifestyle. You want to get the information from a chiropractor. You want to verify what your son and daughter's young people are seeing on TikTok, Instagram, and Pinterest. You want to have someone who is going to keep you honest.
Yes.
You will keep me honest. We will work together with you and for you. Please consider our donation. We have a $50,000 goal. And our goal is to make sure that people that are suffering currently, right now, understand a first-line approach, a natural approach to health. And we bring Dr. O to you so that you see the value and you can help others find a greater way to live their life. I want to thank you so much, Doctor. Dr. Olszewski, you can go back, look up the code CHIROTHON23 to get those special discounts. Go to her website. Can you share with them one more time on how to get your special gift?
Yes, drlisao.com/kicksugar with the code CHIROTHON23 gets you free access. And if you go to the store, all the supplements, you can get a 15% off all of my supplements, CHIROTHON23.
Fantastic. Now, kicker right here. We're going to be ending the day with an absolutely amazing adventure. So don't go away. We're going to be right back to share with you the Guinness Book of World Record holder. I'm going to tease you up here. You do not want to miss this segment. So meet us back here shortly because this next segment, well, it's going to rock your world. Thank you all for joining. Thank you, Dr. O, for being here. Come on back for Chirothon 23 at the Michigan Association of Chiropractors.